Look at this map of India's eastern frontier. The state highlighted in orange is Manipur. For decades, public perception has been defined by exactly what you see behind the map: lush terraced hills, quiet valleys, and a serene cultural landscape. Historically, the state projected an image of vibrant coexistence. Dozens of distinct ethnic and tribal groups lived alongside one another, sharing markets, festivals, and a complex, intertwined history. But in May 2023, that tranquil facade broke. The night sky over the entire state filled with smoke. Neighborhoods that had stood for generations were suddenly engulfed in flames, amid intense, chaotic street violence. Overnight, the scale of destruction became staggering. Tens of thousands of people were forced to flee. Entire blocks of homes were reduced to ash, and communities that had lived side by side turned against each other in open conflict. To understand how a perceived paradise fractured into a war zone, we must look past immediate headlines. The root of this conflict is built into the ground. We have to examine the physical geography of the state itself. This infographic breaks down Manipur's topography, a geographic donut. The Imphal Valley makes up 10% of the landmass, but holds the majority population, the Meitei stronghold. Surrounding it are the vast hills, home primarily to Kuki, Zomi, and Naga tribes. The division between these two zones is formalized by a specific legal designation known as Scheduled Tribe, or ST status. Under the Indian Constitution, ST status grants historically marginalized hill tribes specific protections. Most importantly, the exclusive right to buy and own land in the hills. The valley-dwelling Meitei, historically, have not held this status. This topographic divide created two isolated political and economic worlds, each with its own cultural reality, yet forced to occupy the same state territory. Over time, the Meitei community in the valley felt increasingly squeezed. Their population was growing, but their inhabitable land was legally restricted. Driven by fears of shrinking space and external migration, Meitei groups began to heavily demand scheduled tribe status for themselves. For the hill tribes, this demand posed a direct threat. They argued that granting ST status to the already dominant Meitei population would allow valley residents to buy up the protected ancestral lands in the hills, effectively displacing the minority tribes entirely. These weren't abstract legal debates. The tension materialized into massive, organized street demonstrations. Decades of geographic anxiety boiled over into deep-seated, visible anger on both sides of the divide. The pressure finally cracked in early May. During a large tribal solidarity rally opposing the Meitei ST demand, localized clashes broke out. Within hours, those isolated scuffles rapidly collapsed into uncontrollable mob violence, tearing through the border towns where the valley meets the hills. The state's internal security apparatus was quickly overwhelmed. The federal government deployed thousands of army troops, paramilitary forces, and specialized riot police to try and contain a conflict that was already burning out of control. The eruption of violence was the inevitable result of decades of geographic containment and legal pressure reaching an explosive breaking point. Down on the ground, the political arguments over constitutional status are overshadowed by the physical reality of the aftermath. Across the state, you find abandoned villages, scorched storefronts, and the charred remains of generational family properties. The sheer scale of the displacement is difficult to process. In a matter of weeks, tens of thousands of everyday citizens, teachers, farmers, shopkeepers, were forced to pack whatever they could carry and flee the neighborhoods they had lived in their entire lives. Today, the reality for those displaced citizens is a life in limbo. They are surviving in makeshift relief centers, relying on aid rations, and sleeping in repurposed government buildings and schools. Walk through any of these camps, and you'll find exhausted, deeply traumatized people. And this suffering crosses the geographic divide. There are Meitei camps in the valley and Kuki Zomi camps in the hills, all filled with people united primarily by the total loss of their security. While politicians and community leaders continue to litigate land rights and tribal status in the capital, the immediate, undeniable cost of this geographic divide is an entire generation of families stripped of their homes. The localized dispute has hardened into a structural divide. The burned infrastructure can eventually be rebuilt, but bridging this geographic chasm will take generations. To understand the geography and history driving today's most complex global conflicts, hit the subscribe button below. Thanks for watching.